Hello, Grant.
Hi Eric, how are we doing?
Can you tell me a little bit about tyres, what they are made of?
So, process, if you kind of compare it to kind of baking a cake, it's quite a labour intensive process and it starts with some base ingredients. The tyres start with a natural rubber which we then mix in with some butyl rubber compounds, and this is where we start building the base compounds of the rubber, the tyre, which kind of looks a bit like a big black licorice, which we then use to build the tread layer as the tyre construction continues. So there are different processes, so we get these mixed together and we create different compounds. So these are batch compounds to just define what sort of tyre we use for durability and grip, so we can adjust accordingly with that depending on the mix.
Okay.
So with these compounds, once we've selected and mixed those, we kind of store those ready for which tyres they are. And the next process is the Carcass technology, so it's a nylon carcass. And some people will see that some carcasses have different EPI or TPI, so threads per inch, or as we call it, ends per inch with the carcass, and that's to do with the density of the nylon weave of the carcass. So lower sort of density, so a 24 EPI carcass tyre will have more rubber saturation between the weave. It's a little bit heavier, so normally find it on slightly more budget-friendly tyres, basically, with that. And as we go up the range, you'll get higher density of the carcass with these. So going up to a 50 EPI. What you'll find on high-end mountain bikes, which is a 67 EPI. Obviously, certain tyres the characteristics of the carcass will come into play. So mountain bike tyres require a lot of deformation, a lot of movement in them. So a slightly more open carcass is kind of better for that because it will just allow a bit more movement in the carcass. Some of the higher end road tyres and things will use a 127 EPI, so a little bit denser, a bit stiffer, and built more around the sort of rolling resistance. So you have like a naked nylon carcass like that, and then it gets run through a machine where the butyl rubber will saturate the carcass, and now we're starting to get the different layers of the carcass and the tyre construction. So these are all put into a machine by hand, so it's quite a labour-intensive process. It's still very human automated, using machines, but there's no robots building tyres just yet. Obviously, we've got the choice of different bead core materials.
Can you tell me a bit more about the bead core material?
So you get steel beads and then you get folding bead tyres, and then you can get an aramid bead core, which is what's used on tubeless tyres for kind of higher pressures. Steel bead, they're no stronger than each other, but steel bead's just a cheaper version, so non-folding tyres will use steel bead. It's a bit of a price point, keeps things in a bit more of a budget area. Kevlar bead, it just allows it to reduce the weight of the tyre, and obviously when packaging you'll find them folded up with that. And then when it comes to tubeless, the aramid bead is quite an expensive material. It's one of the few things that separates normal tyres from tubeless tyres is the bead core material and then the sidewalls of the tyre. So I've chosen bead material that you want to use with the tyre, whether it's a folding tyre, tubeless tyre, steel, budget tyre. And then what you get is this kind of what we call a green tyre. So the tyre is all soft, the layers are just laid up with each other. And you can see it's quite stretchy and a little bit tacky and sticky. Different tyres will have different build constructions like I've mentioned. Some might have colour strips on the sidewalls, different tread layers, different puncture protection belts, that sort of thing. So once we've got our tyre laid up, the construction's built, the tyre is then put into what's essentially a waffle iron.
Okay, can you explain what that means?
So it's so to get the tread layer, I'll just grab a tyre. To get this tread pattern, you basically have a mould like so. It's two halves, and it'll open up, and it will have this desired size and pattern etched into it. So as the tyre's put in, a heavy-duty inner tube's put inside of it, which inflates with hot air, which basically expands the green tyre, the soft tyre, into the waffle iron, which then basically imprints the tread pattern into it and all the information about the tyre on the sidewalls. So they essentially cook it. It's baked into shape. People often wonder what these little pokey bits, these little sprue ends are. Therefore, what we call expansion gaps. So as the tyre is forced out, it just allows basically the excess material just to force into those tiny holes rather than deforming the tread pattern or damaging the tyre.
Okay.
With that. So once we've got that, the tyres are then, and the same with during the process of building the tyres are, because the material needs to be warm to use it, they are cooled. So once these are cooked, these are then cooled. Also in the mould, I failed to mention, but the logos and reflective strips are also added in that process as well. And pretty much that's it. After that, you've got a ready-to-roll tyre that is ready to be packaged up and sent to shops.
Brilliant. Could you tell me what is the difference between the budget tyres and the expensive tyres, so more of a performance tyres?
Yep.
Obviously it's the price, but is there any difference in the rubber compound?
Of course, yeah. So we do 3 product ranges. We have Active Line, Performance Line and Evolution Line. Active Line is our more budget tyres, so these are a little bit simpler. You don't get choices of compounds, you don't get choices of Carcass. You get the lower EPI Carcass as well. So the materials are a little bit cheaper to produce a cheaper tyre, obviously. They're a little bit more basic. As you go up the ranges, so performance line tyres, you'll get more options, like you will get a tubeless and folding options in those. Active Line are all steel bead tyres. And then Evolution Line tyres, whether it's road, gravel or mountain bike, you'll often get a choice of Carcass. So whether you want a lighter, more supple XC tyre, or you're looking at a more downhill Carcass, which will use our super gravity or super downhill tyres, you get more option choices basically with them. So that's the Carcass options at that end, and you'll also, in some of them, you'll get a compound choice option. So with our mountain bike tyres, the Addix compounds that we have the coloured pinstripes on them, a bit of a nod to sort of automotive heritage, and that tells you what compound the tyre is. So our red compound, which is Speed, that is kind of reserved for faster tyres, for cross-country, and then working up the scale. Speed Grip, which is blues, going into trail. Orange, which is the soft compounds, going more into gravity. And then we have Ultra Soft with the purple for downhill tyres and things like that. Compounds aren't just always about grip, so compounds are also about the dampening process of them. I haven't got anything to display it here. Unfortunately, we do have a little tool that's quite handy. So if you're ever at a Schwalbe booth, we have these what look like squash balls and we drop them. So what we do is we compare with the harder compounds and the softer compounds. If you drop them at the same height, the soft compound doesn't bounce basically, so it absorbs a lot more. So basically softer compounds aren't just about grip, they're about the knobble and tread deformation and how much it'll absorb when you're riding along.
Better for mountain biking where the bigger thread is required.
So yeah, I mean, so it's a combination of where you've got the right Carcass to allow the carcass of the tyre to deform, and then you've got the compound that then benefits that. So the compounds are relative to their application as well. So an ultra soft compound is reserved for downhill and gravity tyres. You don't get cross-country tyres in ultra soft compounds, so they're kind of relative. So some people can get a little confused with our ranges and a bit unsure of what's the right tyre. If it's a cross-country tyre, you get the cross-country compounds. We try to keep it as simple as we can with those.
Okay. And the last question, can you tell us the difference between thread and pattern?
So road tyres, you have such a small contact area that a tread pattern does very little on a road tyre. So tread patterns obviously in a road application are for water dispersion. To aquaplane a bicycle tyre, you would have to be going at superhuman speeds to make that happen, because the contact area is so small, it's so much pressure in that, it's very difficult for water to force the tyre up, if that makes sense. So they rely heavily on compounds. Tread patterns on faster road tyres are more for up here and mental confidence than they are physical grip.
I assume they also look better.
Yeah, I think, again,
they can differ from each other.
It gives it an identity for sure. Like our Pro 1 tyres, the logo is a bit of a one logo on it. It's directional, helps people put them on in the right direction, that sort of thing. But obviously directions are written on the sidewalls. But you're right, it gives the tyre its identity. and I think it gives you that mental confidence. People think they're grippier because they've got a tread pattern, but it doesn't actually do a lot. So it's not something to worry about with road tyres anyway. Obviously, if you're going to tyres that are going more off-road, that's where a tread pattern is important.
Yeah. So you mentioned that in the road tyres, the direction of the that's imprinted or etched on the tyre is mostly for just to give an idea how to put a tyre. It doesn't really do much. But is that the case with mountain bike tyres?
No, so mountain bike tyres, the tread patterns can either be unidirectional or front or rear directional, and the tyre will display what it is. So some tyres, if you're using the same tyre front and rear, if you're using it forwards, the direction will normally be, in a digging in pattern, like a V, like that way, so it bites. Your front wheel's all about your steering and your confidence and grip, and then the rear end's more of a traction. So you'll find most tyres will have a direction to them. Some are unidirectional, but we do some tyres in our range that are front and rear specific as well, so that can vary. So I think with mountain biking, you're in more challenging conditions. Sometimes if it's dry conditions in the summer, you could be running a racing route front and rear, but then when the conditions get either looser conditions or wetter conditions, we pair that up with our racing ray tyre, so slightly more open, directional tread, just improves that front confidence steering and grip.
Okay, that's great. Grant, thank you very much for sharing your vast knowledge with our viewers, and thanks very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more content like this one, then don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and sharing it with your friends. Thanks very much, and I'll see you very soon.